Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pokemon Review Series. In this episode, we are going over Lucario. Now, Lucario, I think, is one of the saddest Pokemon in this game because a lot of people love this guy. He's a lot of people's favorite Pokemon, very iconic Pokemon, but he was just done very, very dirty in Pokemon Sleep. Probably one of the worst renditions, stat-wise, that we have of Lucario and probably the entire franchise, honestly. I don't know much about the rest of the franchise. I follow primarily just Sleep, but from what I've heard about Lucario's history, I think this is one of the worst, as far as how good he is, versions of Lucario we've ever gotten. So, what exactly is that makes Lucario bad? Well, skill specialist, slumbering type, that's pretty typical of fighting types, which he is in this game. He's a fighting type only, skill specialist. And he's got the Dream Shard Magnet S main skill, which is a very flawed main skill. We've talked about it quite a bit lately on this channel. But there's a lot of problems with this main skill, and it's often regarded as one of the worst main skills in the game. So having a skill specialist that's based around that main skill is very flawed. Additionally, this is the weaker of the variants. There's the fixed variant and the variable variant of the main skill. Lucario has the fixed variant, which is all averages to less Dream Shard output than the variable would otherwise. So it's a weaker skill. Now procs at a pretty respectable 5.1% proc rate. That's decently high for most skills, but we'll get into that a little bit more. And it's got a 43 minute and 20 second speed. That's somewhat respectable. That's not too bad, honestly. It's a little bit faster than the average, but a 14 inventory for a single stage evolution, or two stage Pokemon. We'd like to see that a little bit higher, especially on a skill specialist, but inventory is a rather minor thing, especially if you're checking the app quite a bit. The real question is, how does the Lucario actually perform at certain things? Because whether this is a good or bad skill, that's a whole other topic of discussion that I've covered rather extensively in my other Pokemon review series and even my Sleep Mechanics series. So I don't really want to go into that today. But even if we want it to do its job well, how does it compare to other specialists of the same thing? Now, oh, whoops, I accidentally sorted them by... Okay, let's quick fix this. Okay, yeah, this is actually what we want. So, down here, you can see how many Dream Shards they're expected to create based off the current level of skill, which as you can see, I maxed on all of them. And, interestingly, the Swalot procs the most with 5.98, and then the Lucario procs the second most with 5.88, but because it's a weaker skill, the Lucario gets significantly worse than the Swalot. So much so to the point that it's doing weaker than Sableye, even. Significantly weaker than Sableye at producing Dream Shards, as you can see here. Now, it's way better than its other fixed variant alternates, the Holiday Hat Pikachu and the Persian. And honestly, I'd rather invest in a Lucario over a Sableye, because Sableye takes one more seed, being a single-stage Pokemon instead of a two-stage. So it's going to be more of an investment to invest in the Sableye over the Lucario. But overall, the Swalot is just the king of Dream Shard Magnet. Nothing really competes there in terms of output. Now, a Lucario with golden subskills in nature is going to outdo a mid Swalot. That is always something to be considered. So if you are looking for a Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon, don't be not hunting the Riolu, because the Swalot's better, especially if you're at an island where there is only Riolu and Gulpins aren't spawning in. But it's not really the best at what it does. But one thing that's interesting about it is, as you can see across all the Pokemon here, it does actually outperform the others in terms of raw strength. So it's producing a little bit more strength in its berries and a little bit in its ingredients than what the other Pokemon here are doing overall. So it's kind of counteracting that a little bit by kind of doing a trade-off. It's a little less Dream Shards or just a little more strength. But you don't really want to focus too much on that because it is a skill specialist at heart. And if we compare it to a berry specialist of the same typing, we'd be competing with Primeape. Now, this is what I just toyed around with the natures to get them to be like competitive with each other in terms of berry output. You'd have to get like the adamant nature, the helping speed M, and the berry finding for it to compete with just a berry finding S Primeape. Now, this is possible. I bet you there's somebody out there who has this Lucario, and 100% they should use this Lucario over this Primeape, even though it comes up relatively similar in value. Actually, the Lucario comes out weaker, but that's because the Primeape's skill is contributing to Snorlax's strength, while the Lucario's is contributing to Dream Shard production. But it does have some potential with the right sub skills, but that's gonna be pretty difficult to come by. But it's overall just not doing this job all that well. And if you're to look for something like this, I'd almost rather have a Gallade with a similar sub skill to nature, because at least the Gallade's skill is then contributing to Snorlax's strength. So it's kind of just an interesting Pokemon in a sense that it's not really doing any one thing particularly well. It's kind of trying to do a few multiple things, and it's coming up as the worst kind of option for a lot of those things. So it's just competing with a lot of other things that are going on, and it doesn't really hold up for Dream Shards or for berries, unless you have just the most absolute cracked nature and sub skills in the world, which can always be the case in this game. Now, it does have a very interesting ingredient list. If we visit the dishes infographic, one of my favorite things about this ingredient list is that it synergizes pretty well for the Defiant Coffee Dressed Salad. Now, you wouldn't hunt the Lucario for this exact purpose, because actually this is a very similar ingredient list as Cramorant with the oil and potatoes. So there's an ingredient specialist that can do this. You'd using it to supplement your Cramorant, while also collecting Dream Shards on the side, is the thought process behind that. As far as eggs go, there isn't really anything for potatoes and eggs. There is right here the Egg Bomb Curry, but that's kind of a weaker end curry, and I mean, I guess you might be able to produce this if you got the right ingredient finding sub skills, but by the time that you'd have level 60 Lucario producing eggs, you'd be well past the point that you want to be making this sort of dish. So, yeah, if you want to hunt it, Lucario spawns at Snowdrop. And Riolu, well, Riolu spawns at a few places. Greengrass, Top, Snowdrop, and Lapis. You got a couple options for Riolu if you really, really want the Lucario. Which some people do, because he is pretty cute. He is very iconic. And a lot of people like him for that, so. Anyway, if you have enjoyed the video, or maybe learned something, then I encourage you to leave a like down below. Maybe subscribe. As always, I thank you guys for watching and hope that you have a wonderful day. Goodbye now.